As April's become the month of Toriyama, we've been searching for memories regarding the author. Of course, a lot of them feel rather eulogical and sublime, which, while respectful, show only one aspect of the man that we've read and loved for so many years. Luckily, Toriyama is a man who has left us with a rather decent amount of interviews to pass through, and the one that we wish to talk about today is rather special in its own right. Recently, that being March 21st, Kanzenshuu released an official translation of a very interesting conversation between Kazuhiko Torishima and Akira Toriyama. The whole thing is part of a book whose title roughly translates to Dr. Mashirito's Ultimate Manga Technique. Basically, this print, which originated within Saikyo Jump magazine, is Torishima's memories collated into one book, his career reflections, bits of advice, and also interviews with his peers related to the manga industry. As always, thanks to Kanzenshuu for translating this article, this time courtesy of Seiya Jedi. But before we get to that, some of you may ask, who is Kazuhiko Torishima? Basically, he is the man who recruited Akira Toriyama based on his submission to the monthly Young Jump Award in 1978. Wow, that's nearly 50 years ago, where he debuted with a one-shot title called Mysterious Rain Jack. He was also Toriyama's editor, the editor, if you know what we're talking about. His relationship with the author, whilst friendly, often resembled something like a tug of war, and their contrasting personalities often clashed, but a lot of the time in creative and fun ways. After parting company with Toriyama, he became the head editor of V-Jump in 1993, and after Dragon Ball ended in 96, he assumed the position of Weekly Shonen Jump's leader. Also, Dr. Mashirito, the villain from Dr. Slump, is based on him, with the name of the scientist being a little bit more of a mishmash of his original name, Torishima Mashirito. This is the man who helped Toriyama to become the artist we all know and love. How do they recall their first meeting? Well, here's the transcript. What were your impressions of each other when you first met? Like a skinny and energetic flamingo, laughs. He was a loudmouth too. I prefer people who say what they want to say over ones who are polite but inscrutable, though. So I think that point, at least, worked surprisingly well with me. Toriyama-kun was an ordinary person in a good way. There are a lot of rookie cartoonists, after all, who are brooding or have extremely strong inclinations. Which made me think, I don't really want to work with those sort of people. As you can see, the difference of personalities is visible right away, but they got on like a house on fire. Still, somehow I'm not surprised that Toriyama prefers more direct people. It feels like his Goku-like quality of liking to be challenged. In a way, that explains the dynamic between his characters a lot. But still, one of the more interesting elements that came out of this was Arare's role in Dr. Slump, and how the series formed into what we know it is as today. Shockingly, Toriyama wasn't very fond of making a little robot girl his main protagonist in the first place. In Dr. Slump, what threw me for a loop was how you didn't include Arare at all in the initial storyboard for the second chapter. Why doesn't that cute funny girl show up, I asked him, and he said, she's just one of Senbei's inventions, so that one chapter is all there is. I was thrown for a loop too when you said, make that girl the main character. I was like, what? So he says, I don't want her. And when I asked him why, he told me, because it's a comic for boys. Men of the Showa era, the reign of Emperor Hirohito till 1989, are particularly about manliness, so I really didn't want to have a girl as the protagonist. So I made a bet with Toriyama-kun, I said, draw a comic with a girl as the lead for the Jump Extra issue, and if it doesn't make the top 3 in the popularity ranking, you don't have to make Arale the main character. That was Tomato the cutesy gumshoe. This is another piece I'd rather forget. So Toriyama wasn't particularly fond of Tomato. Interesting. Still, as you can imagine, Torishima won the bet, as the story was rather popular, and he had to yield to his editor's instinct. Not for the last time, may I add, but I think in this case, we are all grateful for the result. But then, the duo fell prey to their own success. As Torishima submitted the first 3 chapters of Toriyama's new hot property that is known as Dr. Slump, now with more Arale, for a serialization meeting, it was not only accepted, but also released with 2 chapters at the same time, a double chapter release. Shigeo Nishimura, vice editor-in-chief, was giving a lot of very high demands toward them, which put a lot of pressure on the mangaka. Toriyama was kinda worried, as he ran out of backup material, but Torishima reassured him. I was happy about that, but also conflicted. When I started drawing the series, I asked, will I have to continue doing this every week? And you told me, you'll be fine. If it isn't popular, it'll be over in 10 weeks. But then all of a sudden, I was thrown into the grind from hell. I didn't even have an assistant, so I could only sleep an hour each day. Initially, I was fairly particular about the inking, but then I gradually found ways to save on time. Laughs. So about 6 months into Dr. Slump, he started getting vocal. I just couldn't see how long I'd be able to keep gritting my teeth like that. Having to wrap everything up in a single chapter every time was really exhausting. So along the way, you started doing things like athletics competitions and a kick the can tournament. Those were desperate measures. It was obvious that I was forcing things to stretch. So yeah, another excellent example as to why all of the calls of Toriyama being lazy over the years is not the case. It's him being more or less more efficient, trying to find ways to be able to fit into his deadlines. Nowadays, we often think that the super manga would be better with monthly releases, that we often overlook the fact that initially, even Toriyama wasn't fond of such a way of publishing stories, doing it week by week. Obviously, a lot has changed since the 80s, but it is a thought that we rarely discuss, so it's good to know the opinion of the man himself about the subject. Now for some fun stuff. How did the evil Dr. Mashirito come to be? At first, I was just going to have a run-of-the-mill bad guy, when you told me, he has no unique traits, make him even worse. So I said, got it, I'll think it over. And by then, that character had already popped into my head. Laughs. When I saw the finished manuscript, I thought, I've been had. But there was no more time for revisions. It being just before the deadline, I had no choice but to give it the okay. Well, I had also cut it pretty close to the deadline on purpose. Laughs. But then it was popular, so I couldn't very well go and tell you to stop it the next time. Now could I? So basically what Toriyama says is that he tricked Torishima into putting an evil character based on him into the manga, doing it so close to the deadline that the editor could not protest. That is some high-level trolling right there. But I also want to direct your attention toward different aspects, and that is the way Torishima shaped the stories and worlds of Toriyama. He wanted him to have fun, but always reviewed it and suggested changes, whilst giving only rough outlines. Doesn't it resemble a certain late master's relationship with his younger student? Now we know where he got it from. It seems that despite their differences, Toriyama really valued that input. But I can imagine that in the case of Toyotaro, he had to deal with a much more chill and relaxed critic. Okay, so how did this whole Dragon Ball thing start? Well, apparently from a promise of something that would be ever more fun than Dr. Slump, of course. Supposedly, this finally gave the author a chance of writing a manga with a male protagonist. And since Torishima suggested Toriyama to take inspiration from the movies, Luck wanted the mangaka to be in his kung fu phase. Apparently, the martial arts flicks were at this point background noise for him. That's how Dragon Boy was born, the proto-Dragon Ball. By the way, if you're curious, we made a video on this exact subject. Make sure to check out that video that you can watch right now, right here. And we shall continue this discourse between master and pupil next week. Catch you later!